Holy crap. I just got a drone. So I didn't bring my regular camera because I was just too excited, but I also remembered that I should probably record this because this is a momentous occasion for Inside the Lens and me and all that other stuff. Here is said drone right here. Oh, come on, I'm in my van. This is like the worst place to open this probably, but I have to open it. Come on. All right. So excited. So very excited. You've already seen some of the footage. So this is actually before I've ever flown it or done anything with it, but you've already seen footage from it, which is strange. That's just the magic of editing. And so anyway, I'm gonna go play with it now. I got a drone, guys. And so I'm gonna fly it. I had to do the podcast, so I haven't even been home. Try this, but there it is. It's doing an update. This is the first time it's actually been on. It's this cool light that flashes. I'm very excited about this. Also not wearing any pants. So yeah, there's that. Today I want to talk about perspective. Perspective. Depending on how you see something, depending on the way you approach something, really says a lot about who you are. You might have a certain perspective on life. You might have a certain perspective on how things work. You might have a certain perspective on yourself. A lot of the times we have really good perspectives on ourselves. So much so that when it's time to actually change and shift perspective towards something fuller, we have a really difficult time doing that because our perspective of ourselves is, I'm already good the way I am. I'll be the first to say that you need to be happy. You need to be satisfied with what you're doing. You need to be encouraged that you know you're doing the right thing. And you should believe that. However, is it great to just have the same perspective our whole lives? Or is that something that needs to shift over time?
How?
I'm going to fly this now, hopefully. See ya.
Bye.
I'll have to fly this thing, not gonna lie. A little bit nervous. Don't want to crash it. It's also pretty dang cold out. You're not supposed to fly it this cold, apparently. But I can't wait. Can't believe I waited this long. So, let's go. This is great. The inaugural flight. Here we go. got to another spot now. Let's try flying a little more dangerous of an area. The problem I had right away was that it was cold and my phone for some reason shuts off in the cold, and it shut off. And so I was kind of panicking because it was hovering above the earth and just staying there. And so I realized, thankfully, that there's a button to go home right on the controller, which is smart. So, crisis averted. I would say that over my life, my perspective on things has shifted many, many times. I mean, when you think about it, when you're in kindergarten or grade school, your perspective on life is very limited. It's very small. You think you just kind of wake up in your house and you go to school and then you come home and have dinner and then do it all over again. And, you know, on the weekend, you might get to go to grandma's house, but the perspective that you have of life at that stage is extremely minute. As we get older and as we gain more responsibility, let's say you get your driver's license, all of a sudden you realize that there's a whole world out there waiting to be discovered. And then let's say you go through a little more and you graduate college and all of a sudden you want to travel to another continent. And then you really get a perspective that you didn't think you could have. Before you leave on that trip, you think you know what you're going to get. You think you have the right perspective, but you just don't. Not until you're actually there. And when you're there, and especially when you come home, you have a whole new perspective. Just how big the world actually is. Perspective does change. If we're going to determine something today, in the beginning I said, maybe perspective doesn't change, but I'm saying that actually it does. I'm going to go a step further and say perspective has to change. If we're going to evolve as creators, if we truly want to create something unique, our perspective has to change. One more spot for today. So how do we change perspective? How do I actually get a perspective that can launch me into the next thing? How do I get a perspective that can allow me to create the next thing? Unfortunately, the only way I've really seen it happen is by going into something you haven't figured out already, exploring, being creative in ways that you haven't discovered yet, being creative in ways that test and push your boundaries, changing your perspective and doing the same thing over and over, and trying something different. And I understand that the changing of that perspective is terrifying. There's not really another way around it. It's scary, but if you've ever been on a trip and gone somewhere different, yeah, the unknown is there. Yeah, you don't really know where you're gonna go. Yeah, everything's up in the air and nothing's guaranteed and locked down, but the perspective that you can gain from actually getting out and going and doing it, that's something that you just can't trade. More importantly, that's something you just can't mimic or fake or try to grow synthetically. It's something that has to grow inside of us. It's something that, like a diamond, has to have pressure around it to cause something to change. Perspective and the change of perspective is what we need right now. I really want to see you create something new. I want to see you create something to a fuller, more extravagant potential. I know it's in you. I know it's in me. But changing our perspective, I believe, is what's going to allow that. So don't be afraid today. Allow yourself to have a perspective change. See what happens. Join the creators. Don't wait. See you next time. This might be stupid, but I'm gonna do it anyway.